2018 December at IIT Roorkee. Recently, Dr. Maheshwari sir is appointed as a Shamsher Prakash Chair Professor at IIT Roorkee for a period of 3 years. He is presently serving as a Vice President of India Society of Earthquake Technology. So I now hand over the session to Maheshwari sir. So please take the charge from here. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Khati. And this is certainly a pleasure. First of all, I would like to thank you, the organizers, for giving me this opportunity. Before I go ahead, let me make sure that am I audible clearly to all of you, or there is any issue related to voice? Is it all right? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible, sir. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. If there is any issue, please do not hesitate to interrupt me.
Yeah.
And okay, all right. So thank you very much to all of you, particularly Dr. Khati, I am working on this area. So it is more than 26 years when I started working on solar cell interaction. But still, keeping in view the audience, I will try to keep my lecture simple, not very complicated or so. And I believe that some of my students, MTech students at IIT Roorkee department have also joined, as well as I could see Shravan Kumar is there, and then Ravi Shastri is there. Others might be there also. All right. Yeah. This is connecting.
Sir.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Sir, actually we are seeing only the screen of MS. Yeah, yes, sir. You can start.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much again. I think it is 11:40 now, so we have well time. So I will be finishing well in time. So this is the course, FDP course on SSI, organized by GB Pant Institute of Engineering and Technology. So I'm what I'm going to cover is some recent advances in seismic soil strata interaction. As there is a difference between what we say the seismic and dynamic soil strata interaction. When we say dynamic loads, it can be due to any other reason, not only earthquake. So my more focus will be on earthquake loading, that how to deal with SSI issues when it is subjected to earthquake loading. So continue, let me acknowledge for this presentation. See that what I am going to present is not only recent work or the old work. This is a combination of what I have started from my PhD in Japan and some of my students, particularly the last one, Madhumi Saiz. So let me acknowledge to my professor advisor, Professor Hiroyuki Watanabe from Saitama University, Japan. So he is no more in the world. Then I did my postdoctorate from Washington University in St. Louis. So he's also contributed to my research, Professor Kevin Truman. And then 3 PhD students who have worked exclusively on SSI problems, Dr. Pawan Imani, my first PhD friend from IIT Roorkee, then Dr. Rajiv Sarkar, who is a faculty at ISM Dhanbad, assistant professor at ISM Dhanbad, and Dr. Madhumi Said. These 3 PhDs are on SSI. So some part will be covered from these agencies. Then because of this research has been funded by some sponsoring agencies also, for example DST, Ministry of Earth Sciences, MHRD, Government of India, then Ministry of Culture in Japan, NSF, that is National Science Foundation, and US Army Corps of Engineers, and Royal Embassy of India. So these are the basically what I am going to present. I not only I have, but my students, my supervisors, they all also have the stake in that. So this is a collection of all these. Now coming to this, I think because this is, I could see 3rd lecture on SSI. I could see the timetable of this FDP. The first lecture has been already delivered by Professor Sawant. Then the second one was by Dr. Kaushik Dev from IIT Kharagpur. So you may be already aware what is SSI, but it is most important when you deal with massive structures which are founded on piles. And pile foundation through soft cohesionless soils, when it is passing through that, then it becomes, when you have cohesionless soils, particularly the sand, loose sand, then the chances of liquefactions are there. So in that case, we will be touching up that how to deal with the case when it is liquefiable soils. So SSI is important issue. If soil is saturated, it may be subjected to liquefaction during storm shaking. So what continue with this? There are few of the slides which I have already shown to my MTech students. So they should keep some patience until I come to the next point. The last week I have covered this in my MTech class also. So what are the failures, during earthquakes? Particularly, this slide is very famous. This is from Niigata earthquake of 1964, and this is liquefaction-induced bearing capacity failure to piles. So what you have, pile foundation is very important for the earthquake condition. Hello, yes, please. Am I audible? I think speaker others can mute their mic. There is a background noise, so I'll request to mute all others to mute their mics. And if there is any issue related to my voice, please interrupt me. So this is what you have could see in this slide, that many buildings are standing, but this building, which you could see at the almost at the center, got fall down. So this is the failure of foundation. So it is important that during earthquake we make the foundations also the safe. So this is typical example. Then continue with this. There are other examples of the bridges. Bridges get collapsed during the last earthquakes. For example, this is 1995 Kobe earthquake. It got damaged, and from 1964 Niigata earthquake. So you could see that the deck of the bridge has damaged, and this is basically related to what we call the foundation failure. So basically, foundation get failed, and once foundation get failed, then the superstructure is not going to survive. So it is equally important that we keep the foundation intact during the earthquakes. Continue with this. This is again from Japan, 1995 Kobe earthquake. There was a damage to Hanshin Expressway. So what you could see, there is a damage to the piers. These piers has got damaged, but there was hardly any damage to superstructure. And if I could see, that in the next figure also similar kind of damage you could clearly see. So these are all issues are related to foundation. These are related to either soil amplification, which is one of the first step of SSI, or maybe liquefaction. This is another example from 1995 Kobe earthquake, where you can see there is a damage to piers and reinforcement is visible. So such kind of damage are clearly indicating that foundation is very important during earthquakes. If you ignore the foundation and only give the weightage to the superstructure, then that is your structure is not going to survive. There is a like some good example also from Kobe earthquake 1995. That this is oil storage tank, which was founded on pile foundation, and these piles are passing through the liquefiable soil. Soil below the tank got liquefied. However, there was no damage to this tank superstructure. So the pile foundation is very important during for earthquake resistant design. That this tank could survive because it was founded on pile. So this is the same kind of, you can say, success. And continue with this. You have damage to bridge in past earthquakes. So that is related to this earthquake. What you could see that below this deck, the pier cap has got damaged, and below there are some damage to pier up. These are all related to soil amplification, where this is the first step of SSI, which has been discussed later. So they're clearly indicating that in past earthquakes, there are clear evidence that there are damage to SSI. Then what you have?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, yeah, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir.
I'll speak slowly. So what you could have in this case, this is pile foundation, and in this pile foundation which is passing through the liquefiable zone. So what you could see, there are three layers. Two layers are non-liquefiable zones, and there is a layer called liquefied zone in between. And when you have this zone, so the problem is there where at the junction of non-liquefied and liquefiable zones. So these piles will be subjected to severe stress at the junction of liquefiable zone and non-liquefiable zones. And this kind of, when how we can overcome with this problem, that when you design your pile foundation, then in that case we need to account for this liquefiable zone. Yes, and this how we can account for the liquefiable zones. This can be accounted that when we design the piles, we assume that there is no support from the soil on this zone. Assuming that pile is free, then it should be designed. So such kind of issues comes, and we are going to discuss in detail in the later slides. So now coming back to this, like after showing you so many slides related to damage and other things, now I go to this, before I talk about advances in SSI, I will briefly like to touch upon on basics of SSI, which has been also covered in the last week during my for MTech students, and it will be review for them. So what you could have, most important issue is SSI, which I'm going to explain in the next slide in let's say in 2-3 minutes. That is the what is objective of SSI. Why SSI is important. So I'm going to explain it. Yeah. Is it all right? All right. So continue with
Yes, sir. It is all right. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Objective of SSI. So before that, let's what are the major issues in SSI, and then we'll come to this. So there are 4 major issues in SSI which need to be, taken care, and that they have the issue. So first thing is modeling of unbounded domain. Soil, Mother Earth is infinite, and we need to model the unbounded domain in such a way that we are able to satisfy the radiation conditions. Satisfying the radiation conditions, we need to model the unbounded domain, and this is the most fundamental objective of SSI. When modeling of soil should be done, because the properties of the soil are frequency dependent. That is the difference between the soil and other material. And when we talk about soil stress interactions, you need to consider the soil fully. Then during strong, that's excitation, when there is a strong shaking, then there is a strain dependency. That is called nonlinearity of soil. So the behavior of the soil is not linear, that is non-linear, and in that case, we need to consider the nonlinearity of soil. And finally, the last one, if your foundations are passing through the liquefiable soil, we need to consider liquefaction along with SSI. So that is the last one. It will be very complex problem, and I will confuse you how to deal. But we will discuss the first very. Continue with this. So this slide is will explain you, and I think let me share with you. I think this is my pet slide. So I have that in many lectures on SSI I have used. So those who have already seen it, they can that pardon me. But this is the fundamental slide, which perhaps I cannot skip it. So to explain the concept of SSI, what you have this structure, and when we say structure, the foundation is also part of the structure here, because for foundation all the dimensions are known, material properties is known. In that case, what you have, that you assume that structure is including its foundation, and when this structure is subject to what is called seismic loading, and which may be due to earthquake or due to other reasons, that case, but then get vibrate, vibration, and they boundaries and artificial boundaries was not there. In fact, we are putting to analyze the real scenario. Rather, you have Mother Earth. Naturally, for any. Yeah, please.
Sir, your voice is barely audible, sir.
Oh, sorry. Then I don't know. Is it network issue or at my end or so
Now,
your end?
sir, it's clear. I think you have to keep your microphone really close, sir. Now
Okay.
it's perfectly audible, sir.
All right.
And loud, sir.
All right, and then I'll speak little slowly also. So I mean not fastly, so you can understand it. All right. Sorry about that. So this is online. Everything is all fine with when we go with the online mode of teaching or lecture, but then we are very much depend on the network and all these issues, connectivity issue. All right. Thank you very much. So now what we have here, that in this case, that actually this boundary was not there. This boundary was put by us, which is artificially boundary at some distance from the structure, and inside this boundary there will be some part of the soil which is connected. When the structure gets vibrated, then the waves will come from the structure and they will hit this boundary and start reflecting back to the structure. That is not permissible. The reflection of the waves is not permissible. Why it is not permissible? Because in fact in real scenario there is no boundary, and the waves will continue to infinity, and once they go to infinity, they will not return back to you. When you put this boundary and do the analysis for a static case, this is fine. But this kind of treatment is not good for dynamic case because the reflection of waves is not allowed. What we need to do, we need to model our this boundary in such a way that this boundary acts like an energy sink. That means all the waves which is coming to the, hitting to this boundary should absorb all incoming waves, and there should not be no reflection. If you are making boundary in such a way that it is absorbing all incoming waves and trapping these waves, then you are satisfying what is called radiation condition, and whatever you are modeling for this boundary is perfect. So we have, that did a lot of work on related to boundary, and in the next few slides, I'll share the slides with the work which has been done by my PhD students for this boundary, including the very recent work. So this is the case here. So the fundamental objective of SSI is to model this unbounded domain in such a way that it satisfies the radiation. So with this, this is the message that we go ahead. Now, this slide shows that what is the importance of SSI, why SSI is important. So you can see in this slide, there are two identical structures. One is situated on the rock and another is situated on the soil. So when you have the first one which is situated on the rock, then what these arrows are showing, they are showing vertically propagating shear waves, and these waves are propagating vertically while the particle motion is in the horizontal direction. This is perpendicular to the direction of propagation. So when these waves come to the rock, then we can assume whatever it is coming from seismograph or from the bedrock, you can input exactly the same at the base of the structure. However, when there is a soil column in between bedrock,
Yes, sir.
yeah, hello, yeah, go ahead, please. Yeah, am I audible?
इसलिए ऊपर से आएगी कूद के परी
Some noise is coming from background noise. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. You are perfectly
All right.
audible, sir.
Okay, so I'll continue. So please ask the audience to mute their mics. So request them to, so there is no background noise.
Right, sir.
All right, thank you. So then what you have, there is a soil column between bedrock and the base of the structure. So if the same wave which was identical to earlier, when it passes through the soil column, then you cannot apply as it is at the base of the structure because its characteristic get changed due to the presence of the soil. And when this wave reaches to the base of the structure or due to the effect of this wave on the top of the structure is very different when your structure is situated on the rock side. And most of the time this wave get amplified, and this is soil amplification, which is the first step of SSI, soil stress interaction. But SSI is not only soil amplification, it also includes two other factors which I am going to discuss in very much detail in the next slide. So I think you will appreciate that when your structure is situated on the bedrock, it is not necessary to consider SSI or soil stress interaction, but it is most important when your structure is situated on the loose or soft soil. If it is situated on the hard soil or rocky site, then it is not required. However, when for the loose condition, it is required. And the effect of SSI will be more predominant when there is a difference in the stiffness of the structure and soil. Suppose if your structure is situated on very bedrock, hard rock, and difference is not much, so SSI is not significant. However, if it is situated on the loose soil, then it is significant. So as much the difference between the properties of the structure and soil, the effect of SSI is going to be predominant. So SSI effect will be weakened when the difference is less. But if difference is more, then its effect is going to come. And this is something which is, I think, perhaps, I don't know, so you may be aware or some other speaker would have talked about it, but this is important issue which you should know. Now continue with this then, that how the SSI works and what are the two other effects which can be explained from this slide. what do you have? Normally, you know that earthquake motion, because we are talking about earthquake, your seismologist or seismograph give you the motion at the bedrock level, because most of the time seismograph is placed at the bedrock level, and which is shown at the figure B. And in this figure, you have incoming waves, and this is the amplitude input motion. When this is the case when there is no soil column on the top of it, okay, the soil is absent. However, when soil is present on the top of the bedrock, that case, when soil is there, no structure is there, no foundation is there, still the presence of the soil change the incoming motion. And you see that the size of these arrows are showing the amplitude of the case is reduced, and because you put at the same level, there is power that go for the height of the structure. Most of the time, get amplitude. Again, I say normally motion get amplitude, but always there may be cases where you get the amplitude. I qualify this word, always get amplitude. Most of the time you get amplified, but there may be cases where we get amplified, and on what factor it depends, whether it is amplified or amplified, depends on your intuition, depends on skill, that shape level of yes.
Sir, your sound is again very feeble now, sir. We barely could understand it, sir.
Okay. So let me have little break and kind of.
Right, sir. Now it's loud and clear.
Yeah, I don't know. Like if I continue keep speaking, then maybe like network get tired or something. What happens? So okay, I'll keep little pause between that. Okay.
It's,
So now is it all right?
right, sir.
Yeah, I have not changed anything, but it happens. I don't know. So what may be the reason? So network perhaps because that could be one of the issue. Now continue with this. So what you have? This was what called this called free field response. So this free field response is shown in figure C. The next figure, where with the soil column you have placed your foundation, but without any mass, that is no inertia of the foundation and structure is considered. However, then what is considered dotted line? Its stiffness is considered, its elastic property is considered, and when you place this foundation and structure at the same point D and E, motion gets changed again, and this effect is called kinematic interaction. The effect of kinematic interaction, that your input motion was translation only, but in output you get rotation also. So it will consist of translation as well as rotation. So this will be the case there. Then continue with this, the next figure. What you have in the next figure, that you have placed now your structure as well as you have this, so what you can have. Now inertia of the structure is also considered, and when you consider the inertial forces also, then it is called what is we call inertial interaction. So it is first step, you have free field response, then you have kinematic interaction, and then you have finally inertial interaction. At the output you get the reciprocating component as well as rotation, rocking. All right, so continue with this. So what I have discussed in this slide is summarized in the next, that what you have effect of presence of soft soil can be summarized like this. You have control motion, which is nothing but your input motion, and effect of soil will lead to what is called modified free field motion. Effect of base, that is foundation, will lead to what is called kinematic interaction, and the effect of structure, that is inertia, will lead to inertial interaction. So it consists of three components: free field motion, kinematic interaction, and inertial interaction. Is it all right? Because okay, continue with this. So continuing with this next slide, I hope everything is fine.
Yes, sir. Everything is fine.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So what you have beneficial effects of SSI, and this in beneficial effect of SSI, you have here what you could see in the slide is response spectrum. And this response spectrum is coming from IS 1893. Of course, it is from 2002 code. There is a small change. It is going up to second in recent code, 2016. So what has been done in the response spectrum, that there are up to certain point, all three types of soils is same, all three curves are same, but after this there is a deviation. And this is for rocky side, then you have for medium soil, and the last one is for the soft soil. What happens when you consider SSI in the analysis? Most of the time, your time period of the system, I'm saying the system, get increased, and this is simply due to the flexibility of the soil, because you may be aware that when you consider, when you say you are not considering the SSI, that means you are not considering the soil. But when you are considering the SSI, that means you are considering all the properties of the soil. So normally SSI is very important when you are dealing with soft soil or loose sand, soft clay or loose sand. So let's say talk about that in that case. So what will happen, that due to the soil is flexible compared to structure, as a result its natural frequency of the system will decrease. And when the natural frequency of the system will decrease, what will happen to period? Period will get increased. And if your period get increased, and let's say due to the effect of SSI, your period is elongated of the soil pile system or soil structure system, in that case, you may come from this point to the next point. As a result, your value of SA by, suppose you was earlier, in the original case, you was in this zone, where the value of SA by G was constant 2.5. But when you consider SSI, now you have come in this next zone. As a result, your SA by Z value get decreased, and if your SA by Z value get decreased, then what will happen? That you will have less. So most of the time, the effect of SSI may be beneficial. When you are considering SSI, you may require less forces for design and other purpose. But again, let me qualify my words that this is not always the case. It may be other way also. It could be other way. That means because due to some other like properties, your this forces may get increased also. So we will discuss what are other factors in the next slide. Continue with this. So and it has been already well documented by in the research papers also. In general, SSI lead to smaller acceleration and stresses, and thereby smaller forces in the structure. But here you need to use the word in general, not always. This is the in general case, normally. However, there are numerous documented case histories where the perceived beneficial effect of SSI have led to the oversimplification in the design, leading to unsafe design in foundation and superstructure. And there is a paper by Milanokis and Gazetas in 2000, which is published in ASC. Continue with this. Now what I am going to explain in the next slides, a very simple method of analysis of SSI, that how SSI can be considered in the analysis in the closed form solution, and which is in the simple terms rather than in very complicated case. So before that, let me talk about there are three different methods of dealing or methods of analysis when you consider SSI in the problems. And what are these methods? One is called continuous models based on the theory of elasticity. Then you have discrete models, which is with lumped masses, and then finally you have finite element techniques. So the first one, which is based on the continuity and consider the theory of elasticity, it takes into account the radiation damping of the soil. So radiation damping can be accounted easily, and the inertial effect of the soil is also well represented. So these are the advantages of the first one. However, you may not be able to consider the nonlinearity of the soil in the first approach. So that is the limitation of the first approach, consideration of the nonlinearity. The second approach, which is based on discrete models with lumped masses, where one consider normally spring and dashpots. So in that case, you may consider the nonlinearity of the soil. However, it is difficult to consider the radiation damping and inertial effects. So you can say what was the limitation of the first one is the advantage for the second, but what is the limitation for the second one is the advantage for the first one. So first and second are not complete one. So what has been done later, then the finite element techniques have come, and if you don't find any solution, then finite element is such a versatile tool that it can provide you the solution. But those who are aware about the finite element techniques, you need to understand that finite element techniques gives you approximate answer, not the exact answer. it will depends on the type of size of your elements, and then you know that how do you the meshing and other things. But finite element is considered to be approximate solution, not the exact solution. However, using finite element techniques, you can consider the nonlinearity of the soil, you can consider the radiation effect also, you can consider the damping of the soil, inertial effects. So whatever the limitation of first and second approach is in the overcome in the third approach in finite element techniques. So these are the backgrounds of like different methods used for SSI analysis. And to explain the that for in the simple terms, I have selected the second approach, that is discrete models with lumped masses, and how to deal using the second approach with SSI. I'm going to tell with very simple example in next 5 to 7 minutes, and I think that will be especially particular for the audience who may be little new, or I don't know, it may be a combination of a few experts in SSI and maybe someone is novel. So it is simple. So what you have in this slide, this is says general steps for linear SSI analysis. So before that, let me show the slide, next one. And I hope the slides are visible to all of you as well as my voice is all right.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you for confirming. Thank you. Thank you. So what you could see in this figure, and let me acknowledge that this is from one of the paper, which is not my paper. It is from Gazeta's paper, which you will find the reference here. So this is what you have in slide. So you have the whole system, okay, and the whole system consists of soil pile system, which you could see. So your foundation, let's say, consists of pile foundation, and the pile foundation is going up to the bedrock. So what is we called end bearing piles, and then you have pile cap, and this is the pier of some maybe of bridge, and this is lump mass, which is representing your structure. When we deal with SSI, it is the soil which is more important than structure, because for structure you can do anything, whatever you want, nonlinear analysis, there are packages are available, you go as much detailing as it is possible for structure, but that is the soil which cause a lot of problem in SSI. So my focus is during this lecture will be on the soil part, and the structure one can easily deal with, that is not an issue. So what you have in this complete problem, the seismic waves or earthquake waves are coming from some source, and they are hitting to the base at the bedrock level, and ultimately they will pass through the soil and the foundation and will reach to the top here. So now the issue is this one, how to analyze this problem considering SSI in the analysis. So what I'm going to explain you is very systematically, step by step, very in simple terms. So let's say that what happens, the first here, the same problem is in the right hand side, but what you could see in this problem, this is representing your input motion, which is due to earthquake, which is an harmonic excitation with amplitude UZ. UZ is the amplitude of your input motion. When this input motion pass through the soil column, which is a free field, you don't have any foundation or structure on the here. When it passes through this free field, then whatever you get at the ground level will be different than your input motion, and this is called free field motion. So this is basically effect of free field motion, and UZ was the amplitude of your input motion, and UFF is the amplitude of free field motion, and most of the time UFF is quite higher compared to UZ, so it get amplified, and this is the effect what is called, and this kind of analysis can be carried out using what we call ground response analysis, or it is also called soil amplification. So this is the first effect of the SSI. However, in your case, you don't have only the soil, you also have the piles in between before they reach to this one. So what will happen, when you insert in the system your pile foundation, the response at the same level of the ground, that is not going to be the same, it is going to be different, and this difference is come due to the presence of the piles. And what difference it comes? At the ground level, you have in output two component, one is translation motion, another is rotation. So even your input was consist of translation only, but in output you get rotation also, and this effect is called kinematic interaction. So I think I'll be, if you know that after my lecture, any one of the audience are able to explain someone that what is kinematic interaction or what is inertial interaction, I think then I'll understand that my lecture is successful. So I think I'm repeating it again because these are the terms where the people get confused. And you know that they keep talking about that kinematic interaction, inertial interaction, and what is really that? That one need to understand. So the kinematic interaction is basically the the change in the free field motion due to the presence of the foundation. So if you don't have any foundation, you have this kind of motion. But the presence of the foundation of piles or whatever you have type of foundation, and where you are considering the elastic properties of the foundation, not the inertial forces, then whatever you get, so the difference between this motion here at the same level from free field to this rocking component, this is kinematic interaction. This is basically effect of kinematic interaction. Okay, continue with that. Now the next what we do, the next slide, continue, our problem is still continue with this. So then the next slide, what you have, how to deal with this problem. So this problem, the first problem is ultimately modeled as here, given here. But before this modeling, what we need to do, you need to find the impedance of the soil pile system, which is called dynamic stiffness. One thing we have, dynamic stiffness or impedance can be found from this soil pile system. What do you have here? You have piles only, you don't have the superstructure now. You have pile cap and they are situated on the bedrock. No motion is coming at the ground. Rather you apply some force at the top. Let's say you apply some horizontal force and get the horizontal motion. Force divided by the motion at the same point. If you have the force, force required for unit displacement or unit rotation, and that is called stiffness of the system. So this exercise has been done to find the stiffness or what is called dynamic impedance or for this soil pile system. And in this case, what is done? You get Kx is for related horizontal component, Kry is related to rotational component, while Kxry are cross coupling. That is, the interaction between the horizontal and rotational component. So what we do, using this system, we apply the forces on the top of it, get the response, and the force divided by these displacements, and they will give you the stiffness of the system. Once you know the stiffness, the value of this Kx, Kxry, and let me tell you, this value of Kx, Kxry, Kry, the elements of this matrix, the value of that depends only on the system properties. It doesn't depend on your input motion, because basically you find these values for the force applied for unit displacement, stiffness, and you may be aware that stiffness of a system or a body is a natural call. It is not depend on the input motion. So this way we find these stiffness or dynamic impedance. Once this is known to you, then you model your total system in such a way given here. So these are the springs Kx, Kxry, Kry, which is given here, and with this spring applied to the structure, lumped mass structure, then you apply at the end of these springs the motion which has been found in kinematic interaction. So in this step second, you find the kinematic interaction motion at the top of the pier, top of the pile cap, and that is the applied at the end of these springs. And we know the properties of the superstructure K1, M1 and M0. Then we can analyze this system, and this will analyze your once you do this kind of analysis, then this will be called soil structure interaction analysis. So for this, let me explain you, emphasize on this, that your input motion is also changing. Input which are giving you at the base of this spring is not the same you have at the bedrock level. This is quite different than, this is the input motion which you find at the top of the pile cap, not at the bedrock level. Bedrock level input, so in the one step you find this input motion, in the second step you find the impedances, and the third step combine these two steps and do the analysis. And now the analysis can be done in the similar fashion as we do for any type of structure analysis. So I think let me have asked, is everything so let me complete this slide and then we can talk about this. So in the what we have discussed in the last slide can also be represented mathematically in this form. So for example, dynamic impedances. In the second figure, there is a term called dynamic impedance. Dynamic impedance is complex dynamic stiffness of the system. Yeah, please. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Khatiji. So what you have here, that one term is called dynamic impedances, and at a particular frequency, the value of dynamic impedance for viscous damping and static damping are given by these relations. What you could see in these equations, and in this equation, you have K star. Star is denotes that this is a complex number, which is imaginary part as well as real part. So when you consider viscous damping in the system, dynamic stiffness can be represented by static stiffness minus mass into omega square plus I omega c. So let me emphasize here that dynamic stiffness is not only static stiffness. When you want to find the dynamic stiffness of the system, then mass of the system is also involved, the damping of the system is also involved, and naturally static stiffness K is also involved. So K, M, C, all three parameters which is coming in equation of motion are involved in dynamic stiffness. So dynamic stiffness is different than static stiffness. For finding dynamic stiffness, one need to understand that it will consider inertial effect as well as damping also. Alright? So, and then K star can be in two parts. One is K1 and IK2, where K1 is representing the real part component of the dynamic stiffness, while K2 is represent your imaginary part. Alright? So continue with this. I think, excuse me, there is some background. I'll request to the organizers. I think there is some background noise. So someone's mic is unmuted.
Right,
So
sir.
I'll
I muted him.
Okay. Thank you. So with this, I completed basics on the SSI, and I think if there is any question or any doubt, I can explain right now before moving to the next part of my lecture. If anyone, one or two questions I may take up at this stage, otherwise I may continue. Anyone have any because this is keeping in view the audience, assuming that they are coming from different background.
Hello, sir.
हेलो हाँ बोलिए कौन बोल
हाँ
रहे हैं?
sir, this is Saikat, sir.
Saikat,
Yes,
okay,
sir.
Saikat. Saikat, may I request, let me give the chance to others. You can ask it to me later also. Let's ask others. If there is no question from others, then you can ask.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Because we are there, so I'll be available to your to always.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Anyone else? If no, then I'll request the Saikat can ask to that. So it may be helpful to others also. Yeah, Saikat, go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. For this slide that you are showing, for the hysteretic damping, what is that? What is that term? 1 plus 2i multiplied. The term. What is that term?
Zeta. Yeah. Good question. Yeah. So now you can mute your mic and I can explain Saikat. See that there are two types of damping. When we deal with the structures, normally in the structure we consider viscous damping. Okay. However, when we deal with the soil, in the soil we can have viscous damping as well as hysteretic damping. So it has been shown, and the behavior of viscous damping and hysteretic damping is quite different. In case of viscous damping, the damping force is very much dependent on the frequency, because damping force will come omega into C. So that means damping force is frequency dependent. However, in case of static damping, damping force is Kst multiplied by zeta, 2 zeta, which is I multiplied by the component which is attached with imaginary I is damping force. So in the first case it is omega C, that is frequency dependent. In the second case it is 2 zeta into Kst. So Kst is static stiffness which is known, and it is zeta. Zeta is called damping ratio. So in the second case you use the damping ratio, while in the first case you use the damping itself, C. So C is the damping, not damping ratio. Of course C can be found if viscous damping ratio is known. So, but there is a very much difference, and that thing I think I'll like to cover in my course, because it is not possible to cover in so much detail in the 1.5 hour lecture. So you will get much detail, answer when you continue with my course. That's what is the difference between viscous damping and static damping. But right now, one is frequency dependent, damping force, not damping. Damping force in the first case is frequency dependent, while in the second case it is independent of frequency. So that is the answer there. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So if anyone else have any question, otherwise I continue with my lecture. Okay. So
Good
now the
afternoon,
next,
sir.
yeah. Who is there online? कौन बोल रहे हैं?
Sir, myself Prince Poddar. Hello.
हाँ बोलिए बोलिए, सुन रहा हूँ मैं.
Sir, in the previous slide, you are explaining K, KCR, impedance, stiffness of spring. Sir, how can we calculate these? How can we calculate these terms?
Yeah,
While
yeah,
modeling
yeah.
extraction.
You mean this slide? By the way, who is speaking? कौन बोल रहे हैं? Can you introduce yourself?
Sir, myself Prince Poddar, sir. Prince Poddar.
Okay. Prince, can you see that slide now on the screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So your question is that how to find these values spring constant, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So for finding this spring constant, they are representing the stiffness of the soil pile system without structure. They are representing your foundation. These springs are not representing your structure. They are representing your soil as well as piles. So these springs we are replacing soil and pile later. So to find these springs, what we do, we have a model as it is as given to us. For example, there are 3 piles is shown in this figure, and on the pile cap is there. So what you do, you apply some force on the top of it, and when this force is applied, it will be naturally, you do one by one. For example, you apply only horizontal force, and then you find the horizontal displacement. So force divided by the displacement give you the stiffness. You know, the force divided by displacement is nothing but stiffness. So you can find the value of Kx when you apply only the horizontal force divided by the horizontal displacement. KRY when you apply the moment and divide by the rotation. But these are cross. Cross means when you have applying the even input motion as horizontal, still if you have rotation, then that way you can find the cross coupling terms. So this is the standard way how we find the stiffness of the system. So that is the answer there. All right. Thank you, Principal. Okay. I think if anyone have very quick question, otherwise I go ahead because time is limited.
Question, sir.
कौन बोल रहा है?
This is Sukumar, sir. Like,
Okay, sir.
So that mass matrix, so mass matrix includes which one? Like, is it mass of the pile cap
yeah.
and pile itself?
Kumar, अभी can we talk in the class? I think आप तो class में पूछ सकते हैं ना?
No, sir, I am not your student, sir. I am some other one.
Okay. KS Kumar is another. Okay, go ahead, please. हाँ, बोलिए.
So I have
Yeah.
doubt in this mass matrix and damping matrix. So
Right.
this mass matrix includes which component in your system?
Yeah, see, if I think I don't know whether I can write. Can I open the blank slide or something, or can I able to write on the blank space if organizers can help me? There is equation motion. मैं इसमें लिख सकता हूँ, can I use some pen or something here on the screen? Yeah, there is something. Yeah, I could find pen. All right. So I could find some pen, and will try to write something to explain you. And okay, no. And I don't know whether I will be able to type it. Pointer option, highlighter, laser pointer. Pen is there, but whether it will allow to write or not, I'm not moving the slide. So let me explain in the course, and see that's called equation of motion. I don't know whether you are aware about that. In the dynamics, in earthquake engineering, equation of motion is very important, and that equation of motion is mx double dot mx double dot plus cx dot plus kx equal to dynamic force. So those who are working in dynamics, they may be aware about that. And there are 3 types of forces in the the equation of motion. One you have stiffness force, which will be always there. Ast multiplied by x will be always there. But you have the inertial force will come when you have this harmonic excitation, and then you differentiate. Then you will get omega square. Let's say you have x equal to x naught sine omega t. Then differentiate 2 times, then you will get omega square. And once you differentiate 1 time, then you get omega, I omega, and this is cancelled out. I think without pen and paper it is difficult. Otherwise, try if I can. Or let what can I do? Let me complete my lecture, and if time permit, then I'll try to open a blank slide and try to write the question. All right?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I continue with this because it is already 20, going to be 30, so half an hour is left. So what you have now, I am going to talk about recent advances in SSI. What has been, and these advances are from, significant advancement has been made in SSI studies in last 3 decades. The advances in computer technology now, it is possible to model and analyze. Yes. His voice is coming?
Yes, sir. You are clearly audible, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. So analyze SSI problems more rigorously. Most of these advances are on two major and very important issues. What are the advantages? First recent advances. The soil is unbounded domain, still its precise modeling is possible. Means even you can model exact sense, and I can, I'm proud to tell you that my students are able to do it, the precise modeling, and it has been published already in a number of publications which I'll share with you. Then the behavior of soil during strong excitation is highly nonlinear, and for saturated loose sands, even the liquefaction may occur. So two issues, how to model unbounded domain, and the second issue is how to deal with the liquefaction. So the nonlinearity and liquefaction. There are a number of commercial softwares, SASI for structural analysis for soil structural interaction analysis, which is software for SSI only. Then you have Flush, Flax, Classy, Flax 3D, Dynafor, Plaxis 3D. These are the name of some of the software which claim that they are able to deal with the SSI problems. But what I am discussing two above issues, none of the software worldwide can deal with both of these problems together. One software they can able to deal with one, not nonlinearity, all these issues are there. So I'm going to discuss that what are the advancements made by our research group on these two issues. So what I'm going to present in the next slides, this is from my own research group, including PhD students, as I mentioned earlier, Imani, Sarkar and Saeed, which work extensively in the area of SSI and SPSI. SSI means soil structure interaction. SPSI means soil pile structure interaction. So my journey for SSI started in 1997 from my PhD, which I graduated, and material where what has been done, material and geometrical nonlinearity in the theory which is proposed by Kenya and Kozol in 1982. There is a PhD thesis on MIT in US, where they have considered that was the first PhD worldwide on pile group, and my contribution was to consider the material and geometrical nonlinearity in that analysis. And from postdoctorate, we use in 2013 Kelvin elements to model the boundary and HISS soil model with nonlinearity. Then my first PhD student, Imani, he carried out nonlinear SSI analysis using what is called CIFECM. Here term CIFECM stand for consistent infinitesimal finite element cell method for boundary and use hybrid method. Then Sarkar in 2009 considered liquefaction for SSI analysis, which is the second student, and recently in 2014, NM Saeed modeled the boundary using SBFEM and nonlinearity of soil using HIS soil model. So some of the part which has been published, I am going to share with you during the next of two lectures. So when we talk about boundary, that is as I mentioned in my first slide on SSI, that how to model the boundary, which is very important. And when we talk about modeling of boundary, these boundaries are local in space and time. So what kind of boundary you have? The elementary boundary, the viscous boundary, Kelvin elements, transient transmitting boundary, and infinite elements. Okay. So elementary is very elementary and viscous air. Then Kelvin element is somewhere in between. So which has been widely used by us in some of the publications, which I'm going to explain later. Then continue with this. So what the next slide is what we are going to discuss: soil pile structure interaction using Kelvin elements at boundary. What is Kelvin elements? Kelvin is the name of the person who invented these elements and how to use that I'm going to discuss. And the objective of this boundary is to make the boundary so it absorbs as much as possible the all incoming waves. So what we are going to discuss is in the next slide is, for structure which are supported on pile foundations, you have problem of SSI is converted into what is called soil pile structure interaction. Then response of SSI system, it will consist of kinematic interaction plus inertial interaction. So you have this. For SPS system, two types of interaction effects are there. One is called soil pile interaction and another is called foundation structure interaction. So continue with this. So this is the slide which is I'm going to, and this slide has been, the some of the data has been published in Soil Dynamics and Earthquake Engineering in 2004. So this was what is in the slide. See that as I explained to you, that nonlinearity is a big challenge when you deal with the soil, because the behavior of the soil is highly nonlinear when you deal with, that when you have it is subjected to stroke shaking. So yes, yeah. So what you have in this slide, this is your system. This is considered foundation and as well as superstructure. So one way is that you apply your input motion at the bedrock and you analyze the complete system. Yes, you can do now, because now the computers are very powerful, and that. But at that time in 2004, that is more than 16 years back, the computers was not so powerful as and the memories was not so available for doing the finite element analysis. So what we did, we break the problem into two parts. One is called foundation system, another is called structure system. However, this kind of breaking or this kind of separation of the system is not permissible for nonlinear analysis, and still we are able to do it. How we are able to do it? Though we break the system in two components, but continuously at each time step, we have kept interaction between these two components. One way that you analyze this for whole time history, this system, and get the answer, and then you analyze that this. No, this is continuous feedback from one system to another system. For example, when this foundation subsystem is subjected to the input ground motion at time delta t, then at the top of the pile heads there is no force is acting, and you can find the response of the system, and that response is found at the level of pile, pile head or at the top of the columns, and that response is called, let's say, U double P delta T. That means that is acceleration in piles at due to this motion, which is known. Now this acceleration becomes input to this structure subsystem, and then we analyze this structure subsystem again and find the inertial forces acting at the pile head. So in the second step, it is subjected to input motion due to ground motion as well as inertial forces which is coming from the superstructure. So there is a difference between the first step and the second step. In the first step there was no forces coming from the top, but in the second step, when you consider this system, now it is subjected to two forces. One is due to ground motion, another is due to inertial force. We analyze this, and then again whatever output you get, you feed to the system and get the forces back to at this pile head. So this way this is a continuous process. So we continue with this efficient, that exactness or accuracy of this kind of techniques depends on how small you are considering this time step delta t. If you are considering the time step very small, then you are going to for nonlinear analysis you are going to exit answer. But if delta t is large, then you will get approximate answer. Naturally, it is better to consider the small time step. However, it is going to increase your computation time because you need to do a lot of computation. So that is only the disadvantage. But still we are able to manage the big problem by using this technique, because the computer memory and this hard disk, everything was limited to deal with the soil pile system. So this technique has been published as I mentioned in SDE in 2004. Continue with this. So what has been done using this technique? We have analyzed two simple systems, which is soil pile system. First one is consists on single pile, and the second one is on 2 by 2 pile group. That means you have considered a square pile group of 2 by 2, and on the top of it you have a structure. So you have here what you have 10 meter and 6 meter the height. So let me show you how we have done the modeling for this. So what is, because there is a complete symmetry. Symmetry in the sense your structure is this system is symmetrical, your loading is also symmetrical. Loading is applied at the center. In both the cases it is applied symmetrical. So in this kind of taking advantage of the symmetry, we was able to consider the 1/4 model of for single pile as well as pile group. And this 1/4 model can work for linear analysis but not for nonlinear analysis. For nonlinear analysis you need to consider at least half of the model. So for the single pile group, single pile this is the model, and pile group this is the model. So what you could see, instead of in pile group there are 2 by 2 4 piles, in one quarter model. This is called quarter model. 1/4 model, you need to consider only one pile and the remaining pile, but you need to apply what is called the condition for axis of symmetry and axis of anti-symmetry. At the same time, you need to consider at the boundary. And the boundary, as I mentioned, is very important in SSI. So how the boundary is modeled in these problems? Boundary is modeled using what is called Kelvin elements. And these Kelvin elements consist of spring and dashpot. These are the boundary elements here. However, these are the axis of symmetry. These are, that's here, this axis of symmetry. The translation is, restricted in this direction while they are permitted in X direction. While in this case, they are restricted in Y direction and permitted in X direction. So these rollers are representing the boundary, inner boundary, axis of symmetry and anti-symmetry. At the boundary, at outer boundary, you have a combination of spring and dashpot. So the 1 Kelvin element consists of spring and dashpot. That means you will have a spring as well as one dashpot. Dashpot means viscous dampers or could be damper. So you have one spring, another damper. So combination of spring and damper or dashpot is called Kelvin elements. And the Kelvin elements are work better for boundary than simply. Some people use only for simplicity viscous dampers. Only viscous dampers. No spring is used. So once you use at the boundary no spring, only dampers, your problem gets very much simplified. However, this is not accurate. Using a combination with spring and dashpot is far better than only using viscous dampers. So this has been emphasized in these papers which has been published. Another paper is published in Canadian Geotechnical Journal in the same year in 2004. So this is the case. I hope, am I audible, sir? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, yes,
You are
sir.
audible.
हाँ अगर कहीं कुछ लगे तो interrupt करिएगा. Okay, thank you. So I continue with that. So what you have now, this is the modeling part. I have shown you how we have modeled and how the boundary condition we have modeled. Now I am going to show you some typical results which has been obtained at the time and already published. So as I mentioned that all of my studies and you can say my students, they have worked very systematically on SSI. Understanding is most important rather than getting the result only. So the free field response we have worked, then we have done with the single pile and then pile group and then soil pile structure interaction. So when you have the free field response, that means there is no foundation, and this is the ratio of your output at the ground level divided by input motion. So you could see that this ratio is quite varying with the frequency, and at certain dimensional frequency this ratio could be more than 2.5. That means due to soil amplification, your input motion may be amplified more than 2 to 3 times in this case in the given data. Of course, how much amplification it will take, it will depends on your data, your input soil properties as well as your geometry and all the things. What you have in this graph, in this chart, on the x-axis is dimensionless frequency, which is typically in geotechnical earthquake engineering. Frequency is represented in a dimensionless form. What is here? Omega is frequency of excitation, D is diameter of pile, and Vs is shear velocity. So this numbers is come dimensionless. So as your omega varies, your A naught will change. So what is the variable parameter? Frequency. All D and Vs is constant. So omega it changes, A naught it changes. Or otherwise here A naught values are listed. You can find the value of omega by multiplying A naught with Vs divided by D. So this A naught is dimensionless frequency. So what you could see, and why we make dimensionless? So these parameters are applicable for wide range. They are not specifically applicable for a small range of frequency. So you could see there is an amplification. Wherever this ratio is more than 1, then it will be amplification. But if this ratio becomes less than 1, then there will be de-amplification. So which may occur at higher frequency. Okay. Continue with this. So what you have in the next, this is effect of kinematic interaction. Effect of soil pile interaction. When you insert the piles inside the system, so this is the ratio at the amplitude at the pile cap divided by the amplitude at the ground level, and this ratio, how this is varying with the frequency. So you could see that this is varying with the frequency, and you are getting the maximum transfer function at certain frequency, which is basically related to the natural frequency of the system, because response is coming maximum the time of natural frequency. So this was the case for kinematic interaction. Suppose this was for a single pile, but if you have a pile group, then your results are like this. In case of this is represent dynamic stiffness, that is the real part of the dynamic stiffness, and this is imaginary part. Again, x-axis is same as dimensionless frequency, but y-axis you have the real stiffness, real part of the stiffness, and that is divided by the static stiffness multiplied by the number of piles. So this way you have made this y-axis also dimensionless, and so this represents what is called the spring constant, while imaginary part represent the damping constant. So both, what you could see, that these results are very much depend on the spacing between piles. For single pile, this is almost constant unity. A black line is representing here. For imaginary part, again the black line is representing for the single pile. But when you have the pile group, for the case of the pile group, your results will be very much depend on the spacing between piles. For this one case, this is S by D equal to 2, S by D equal to 5 and 10. So when you keep the ratio S by D, what is S? Center to center spacing between piles, and D is the diameter of the piles. So this ratio is dimensionless, and when this ratio lies between 5 to 10, then you can see that there are certain peak values. So you get some, at certain frequency, you get the peak values, and these peak values are coming due to what is called interaction effect, group effect. If you have single pile, these peaks are not coming. But if you consider a pile group with a spacing more than S by D equal to 2, then you start getting S by D equal to 2, you are not getting any peak. But at 5 and 10, you are getting the peaks, clear peaks in real part. The same thing is for imaginary part. For imaginary part, there is not much variation in the result when you consider the single pile. However, when you are considering this S by D equal to 5 and 10, then there is a difference. Now continue with this, and this is, as I mentioned, already published in Canadian Geotechnical Journal in 2004. Now let's see the effect of structure. So far what you have considered only pile foundation. You have found soil and foundation only. Now I put on the top of foundation some structure also. So the structure will also make its effect, and how the structure, and that is called inertial effect. So when you consider the structure on the top of it, how the difference comes in your results, and this is like, you know, that what is the effect of successive coupling on the response of the pile. And so let me explain this slide. The black line is representing your free field motion. That means motion, amplified motion at the ground level. While you have, red line is reserved for the structure and pile, this is without interaction, while blue line is with interaction. So let's discuss pile head without interaction. That is the red dotted line. So this is without interaction, and when you consider the interaction, then the peak is get decreased even for pile head. But when you consider the structure, that you could see that this peak value is coming so much, about 16, amplification factor about 16. This is coming the case when you are considering the structure. That means without considering any interaction, but only simply structure. This is the response of the structure without considering solid interaction analysis. And at the same point of the structure, response of the system is here with the blue line, which is the peak. So there is a large difference between the peak values. So one can say that this is the effect of interaction, because this red curve is without interaction, while these blue curves are with interaction. So if you do not consider the interaction, then there is a much difference in the results. So that's why this slide is telling you that how important it is to consider the SSI. Fine. Okay, so I continue with this. I hope that still I have some time. So this was the, some of you want to get a detail. So already I have given you this reference. So you can have this paper which is already published in Soil Dynamics and Earthquake Engineering, and you can read that one, and then still you have it. Continue with this on the next slide. So now what I am going to talk is the recent work which has been done. One of my PhD students, Madni Said, which is published in 2014. He already graduated. The title of PhD was Nonlinear Seismic Soil Interaction using Scale Boundary Finite Element Method, and it has been he have graduated. So I will share some of the slides from you to you, some of the results published and already published in the paper. So, like this is this thing which is explaining what is the difference between direct method and substructure. So in the SSI analysis, one is called direct method, where you consider some part of the soil with the structure. And when you consider some part of the soil with the structure, then as a result, what you will have, that is, you can analyze considering some soil together with this. That is direct method. However, with substructure method, what you do, put some boundaries. ROI is stand for region of interest. This is the region of interest near structure where the behavior of the soil is known. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Now it's clear and loud.
Thank you very much. So, what you have in direct method, this is the part of region of interest, means where the effect of structure will come, and you can say the behavior of the soil is non-linear. However, when you go away from the, you know, that the structure, this breaking. Okay, so I'll be taking it back. So then I think slowly. Now I hope it is all right. So what you have later, that you put some part of the soil is considered with this structure, and as a result, while considering this some soil, and you analyze. However, this kind of analysis will depends where you put this boundary, and for better result, if you put this boundary as far as away from the structure, you will get good result. But if you are putting your boundary, this next boundary, not this boundary, the next boundary, where near, because otherwise if you put very large away, far away from the structure, then your computation time is going to increase, because you need to consider so many elements, so much part of the soil. So to deal with this problem, what we did, what Madni did, Saeed did, he put a boundary here and model this boundary using what is called scaled boundary finite element method, SBFEM, scaled boundary finite element method. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. In soil stress interaction analysis, let me go again. Direct method and substructure method. There are two columns you could see on the screen. There are different types of boundary which are used for direct method and substructure method. You have classical viscous boundary, which is used in direct method, infinite element, frequency dependent Kelvin elements, which I have already used. I have shown some results. Other transmitting boundary. But by structure method, we use what I have listed here. Boundary element method, that is BEF.
हाँ तो पण नंतर क्लास येत आहे then with the class.
Hello. Hello.
Sir, you may continue.
Yeah.
Actually, there was a disturbance from some participant. Now it's rectified, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So then you have CIFECM, consistent infinite CMUL finite element cell method. Then you have SBFEM, that is called scale boundary finite element method. As I mentioned in earlier slide, that my first student Imani used CIFECM to model the boundary. Common Imani, PhD student at IIT Roorkee, used that, and this is quite advanced boundary, and that's why his some paper published in Soil Dynamics and Earthquake Engineering. Later, the recent one in 2014, Madni used scale boundary finite element method, and really this have come so fine that with good publication, which I am going to share with you. So what is this concept as SBFEM? What has been done is explained by this graphical picture, which is I think visible to all of you. And in next 1 minute, I am going to explain to you. See that I mentioned to you, when we deal with soil stress interaction analysis, then two major issues are there. First issue, how to deal with the unbounded domain. Soil is unbounded domain. It is not a finite domain. It is very large domain. So how to deal with that? Number one. Number two, the behavior of the soil is nonlinear during earthquakes. So how you'll consider what we require? You require a perfect boundary which represent your unbounded domain, number one. At the same time, you require a constitutive model which are able to deal with the nonlinearity of the soil. So what has been done by Madni to overcome with this problem? He divided, Dr. Saeed have divided into two components. One is like say near field, another is called far field. Okay, so you in the far field is modeled using what is called SBFEM. SBFEM stands for scale boundary finite element method, and near field is done using what is called normal finite element method. So for this case, this region has been dealt using finite element method. while the second part is deal with using this is SPFM. Now, what is SPFM? I'm going to discuss in the next few slides SPFM, what is the advantage of SPFM, and then we'll come back. Scale boundary finite element method. There is a book of Wolf on SPFM also. So those who are interested, SPFM is not a new topic; it's already available, but its application for SSI is really new, which has been the first time I think done by this Saeed. So what has been done? First entirely on finite elements, but with a discretization on the boundary only. So we need to discretize only on the boundary. Offers more than the combination of the advantage of both the FEM and BEM, evading their drawbacks. Permits calculation of dynamic stiffness matrix in frequency domain as well as unit impulse response matrix in time domain. And then what you have? What are the advantages of FEM? SPFM comparison with BEM and FEM. So no fundamental. So these are the list here, and I'm going to explain. What is BEM stands for? Boundary element method. What is FEM? FEM is very popular, finite element method. And then you have SBFEM. So you can say SBFEM is nothing but it is a combination of BEM and FEM. And in SBFEM, advantage of both BEM and FEM is taken. So for example, no fundamental solution is required in FEM, but it is required in BEM. But this is true for SBFEM. You don't need any fundamental solution. There, reduction of spatial dimension by 1 is possible in BEM, not in FEM, but it is possible in SBFEM. Radiation condition is satisfied exactly in BEM, not in FEM. But again, SBFEM also gives. FEM is suitable for anisotropic, not BEM, but SBFEM does it. Symmetric matrices are possible in SBFEM, though it is possible in with some condition in SBM. Free surface extend to infinity, not discretized in both BEM and FEM, but it is possible in SBFEM. So with this, so you could see with this table that SBFEM is so good that whatever disadvantage you have in both the cases BEM and FEM, they can be taken in SBFEM. Then continue with this. You have this verification of coupled. So there are some verification other things. So I think still I have some time. Hello.
Yes, sir. 5 minutes from the designated time is still remaining, sir. You can carry on.
Okay. So what you have? So some you have here for the this is some work has been published from computers and biotechnics. So what you have? This is the problem. In this problem, you have a box where some horizontal forces are applied to represent the impulse loading at this level. And what has been done? This is the loading given here. And what has been done that this is representing your lateral motion for earthquake, horizontal motion. And in this result, a comparison between present study means the study which has been done by Saeed in 2014 and Lehman and Sanchez, and so you could see very close form solutions. So exactly, and this has been done using our own code. No software has been used. This is using MATLAB program has been done, and this is, you could see that agreement is very good. Later on, what improvement has been done? This was the first verification that whatever we have are using is all right. Then here, a technique has been developed with some reduced set of base functions. So you could see that up to this point, all 4 results are same. However, after that they start deviating. So this is with the full set of base functions. So this is exact result. But if you use 20% reduced set of base function, then you get this result, 40% this and 60% this. So there is a, when you reduce that computation time, then there is a small change in accuracy, but there is a lot of reduction in computation time. And what is reduction is listed in the next here. So here, this is the list is giving reduced set of base function. This is the exact result. Horizontal displacement by 20%, then this is the result. But it is 40%, then this is the result. So the percentage error is 3.54%. And you may be aware that in engineering, if your error is less than 5%, that is acceptable for most of the work if it simplify your calculation and your process. So up to 10% normally consider, but 5% is not an issue. So it is even less than 4%. And with this 60% reduction of base function, what was the reduction in time of computation which is listed here? So you could see If you use regression conventional method for analysis, exercise analysis, this was about for the same PC, it was taking 2500 seconds. But when you reduce the recursive algorithm, this time reduce set of base function, then this, and so this have come so much down, blue line. So ultimately, so this work has been already published in Computer and Geotechnics, as mentioned earlier. So one can go through those papers and can see. So what you have here, so the message is here that even with the reduction in the accuracy with 4% with the exact result, the reduction in computation time is more than 50 times. Almost it is, you can say, about 50 seconds it is taking against 2500. Then continue with this. Another work on dynamic impedance and response using different approaches, which is published in International Journal of Geomechanics, ASC, in 2016. And these are the comparison for single pipe. So this is for verification purpose only, that our technique is working well. And you could see that the closed form solution. This is Imani and Maheshwari. So we have compared all three results. This result is Sarkar, and this is present study means by Saeed. So again, all the three students works comparison. Then what you have, again, this is good, you could see good agreement. So this verified our technique for the present study, and then what we have started working, which is published again in the same journal, Computer and Geotechnics. So boundary effect. So I'll explain in, I think, I'll be taking another 5-7 minutes. Is it all right?
Yes, sir. Not at all a problem, sir.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to explain in this next few slides that how we can deal with the boundary. So you see that what is typically done in SSI problems, you consider certain domain which is given here, and in this domain you apply some boundary. At boundary, where you apply this boundary? You are applying this boundary at here. So popular boundary is viscous dashpot, which is very easy, simple. Viscous dashpot I have used long back in 25 years back. So which at the time, computers was very slow in 94, 95 when I was doing my PhD. So we used viscous dashpots. But nowadays if I use viscous dashpot, perhaps the papers will not get published and the people will say it is quite, everyone knows about it. But they are very simple to use. So elementary level they are fine. We still practicing engineers use viscous dashpot and other things. So what I am going to show you that this is the reason which is the 5 meter foundation, width of the foundation 5 meter. What is B? B is the reason which is considered away from the foundation both sides. Naturally, as much as B you consider outside, your results are going to be accurate. Your radiation condition is going to satisfy even with viscous dampers. However, your computation time is going to increase. So one way you are solving your problem, that you are going to getting good result, but at the cost of very high computation. So for that cost, what you do here, you have Young's modulus and density Poisson's ratio, it is given here. In the next slide, what you could see that what is the difference in the accuracy when you consider the different boundary. So the top one result is using SBFEM, scaled boundary finite element method. Then you have dashpots here, putting at 5 meter, and then you put at 10 meter, 15 meter, 30 meter. So when you put at boundary B equal to 30 meter, you are going to close to exact result. However, computation time is also going to increase. So a comparison between all these methods in computation time is done in the next slide. So what is done here? So when you consider B equal to 5 meter, your computation time is 13 seconds, and 41, 15 and 30 meter 857. So results are more accurate with using SBFEM, and they are coming only with 234 seconds rather than 857 seconds used in 30 meter B equal to 30 meter. So this boundary is not only accurate, it is efficient also. So in this paper which is published in Computer and Geotechnics, we have shown that our boundary was working well as it is helping to reduce the computation time. So this was the message there, and so continue with this. I think I have done almost with all topics. What I am going to discuss very briefly in next 2 minutes, that is there are different approaches for dealing with material nonlinearity and liquefaction. So you have for example, for modeling of liquefaction, suppose you want to deal with liquefaction along with SSI, then there is a paper published by Martin and Seed in 1975 model. It says how to model pore water pressure. Then Birne model is there, published in 1991. And different, constitutive models are there. Elastic linear model is simple. Equivalent linear model is given in the Kramer. I think many of audience may be aware about with the Kramer's book. Cyclic nonlinear model is also available. But what we have used in our research it as advanced plasticity models, which may not be available in the Kramer's books and others. And what model has been used is HISS soil model, and that paper is published in Geotechnique, Journal of Geotechnique in 2017. What has been done here in HISS soil model is HISS soil model, nonlinearity of soil is considered here, and this is the yield surfaces. But you could see yield surfaces here. You have different yield surfaces, which is using hierarchical single surface model. So those who are working with the plasticity of the models, they may be knowing what is yield surface. So I'll not go in much detail because it will be otherwise complicated for others. So it is, you could see that here yield surface itself is changing. It is not constant. So this, we are not considering a single yield surface. Rather, we are able to deal with multiple yield surfaces depending on the state of stress of your soil. And using this model, which is very complicated, we are able to deal and able to show with a problem. This is a problem, a footing on artificial sand. This problem was taken from a literature, and using our model, we are able to get the result, and you could see that the results are very close in agreement. So these are already published in Geotechnique, and one can refer those papers. Now the issue is this one, many times I have said that soil is a nonlinear material. Its behavior is nonlinear when during strong excitation or earthquake shaking. So you require to find the properties of the soil, nonlinear parameters, you require lab test. And fortunately in our department of earthquake engineering, we have two systems. One is called cyclic triaxial system apparatus, which is fully computerized, and this is able to deal with the in high strain range. So in the high strain range, we can find the dynamic soil properties of the soil as well as liquefaction for analysis. And for low strain, we have another equipment called resonant column test apparatus. So using both the apparatus, we can find the dynamic soil properties in all the strain range, in low strain as well as high strain. So this is so parameters can be found from the lab testing, and they can be used in the computation which I have shown to you. So with this, and then the last slide, I want to give a message to you that SSI is very important issue to be considered in the design of structures. If you ignore this effect, it may not only lead to unsafe design, but it may be uneconomical also. It is not necessary when you consider the SSI, your design is going to be uneconomical. Rather, it may be economical. However, it is not always the case that considering SSI would lead to a conservative design. Rather, it may provide an economical solution. Therefore, it is against the general need. The effect of SSI are not always detrimental, but these effects may be favorable to also. So the message here is simple, that one need to consider SSI wherever it is required. Whatever the issues has been discussed during these lectures, modeling of unbounded domain, frequency dependent characteristics of soil, modeling of the nonlinearity of the soil, modeling of liquefaction, and these are the vital issues in the SSI. And for these issues, all important projects, both simplified and rigorous modeling should be performed. Differences in the output should be compared, and there is no unique approach for modeling and solution. It depends on your problems, how much you want to invest in your modeling, computation, and other things. That also depends, and depends on the importance of the project. So, if you have any query, my email is listed here, even after this lecture. But if there are some queries, I'll be happy to answer that. And I think I'll overshoot by 8 minutes my lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you.